A silent university cleaner discovers a world of mathematical solutions that no one has been able to solve. Her mysterious drawings attract the attention of scientists, and she becomes part of a project that could change science. But with each new discovery, her life spirals out of control, and she faces a question: how to be understood if you can't speak? Caught between genius and loneliness, she must choose at what cost to remain herself. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. Lucy Benson sat in her small office and looked out the window. Every now and then, her gaze returned to the white board on which she was drawing. Each of her days began and ended the same way: cleaning the university, modest work, and silence. But for several months now, her hands had been doing something unusual. She could not explain how exactly it happened, but she was drawing more and more. And each time she completed another drawing, her heart sank with the feeling that these were not just random figures. The space she was in was unremarkable. A small office on the ground floor, not the most prestigious building of the university. Old wooden cabinets with crumpled documents, scattered books and newspapers on the table, one of which was open to old mathematical formulas. In the corner of the room stood another board, on which Lucy sometimes drew figures when she needed to understand something. It was here that she spent most of her time, hidden from the noise around her. But that evening, she felt something had changed. She put a marker on the board and began drawing another figure, a polyhedron that wouldn't fit no matter how hard she tried. She returned to the problem again and again, making new marks each time. As she thought about her creation, she felt her eyes begin to get lost in the drawings, absorbing the space. Darkness was already gathering far beyond the window. When there was a knock at the door, Lucy jumped and quickly moved away from the board, trying to hide her work. She didn't like it when someone saw her creations. This was her space, her world, which she built gradually, increasingly losing touch with reality. Michael Hayes, a math teacher with whom she had crossed paths several times at the university, entered the door, but he was always so busy that their conversations were limited to brief greetings. "You're here again, Lucy?" Michael said, a little surprised when he noticed her concentration. "Aren't you tired?" Lucy looked at him, but didn't answer, just inclined her head slightly in greeting. There was no irritation or joy in her eyes. She just continued to look, silent. The habit of silence had become part of her life since the injury that had left her unable to speak. But her thoughts did not disappear. Lucy still perceived the world, perhaps even more clearly than many others. But she lacked the ability to express her feelings in words. Michael noticed this silence, but he did not retreat. He still came closer, becoming part of her space. "You know, I always hear about your amazing abilities, Lucy, but I've never seen your work. You draw, right?" His tone was soft, trying to be understanding. He had long noticed that Lucy was unusual, and her works seemed mysterious to him. But it all remained just rumors, until he decided to see her drawings with his own eyes. Lucy took a few steps toward the board, and calmly, but with a little tension, picked up a marker, drawing another polyhedron on the board. She paused, looking at the figure, and then turned to Michael. He stood to the side, watching her movements carefully. "Why don't you talk?" His question was simple, but subtle. Lucy felt him trying to understand her. It was more than just curiosity. She went back to the board and wrote on it, "I can't." That was her answer. "I understand," Michael replied with a slight nod. "But you see more than the rest of us. Don't you want to share that with the world?" Lucy turned to him, her gaze brightening. She wrote on the board again, avoiding eye contact with him. "I don't know how." Michael took a step forward. He didn't know exactly how to help Lucy, but he sensed that she was hiding something important that she hadn't yet realized. Her drawings were more than just geometric shapes. They were connected to something internal, something she could see and understand. But how could she communicate this to others if she couldn't put it into words? You may not know how to talk, but I'm sure you can show. I've seen your drawings. They say a lot more than you think, he said quietly, coming closer. Lucy paused again, then walked over to the table and wrote on the new board, "Do you believe I can make a difference?" Her question was serious. In this space, in this silence, she was looking for answers, looking for confirmation that her abilities were not just a fluke, but something more. "Yes, I believe you can change a lot. I saw you drawing. You see the world differently." Michael looked at her carefully. "You can even solve problems that seem too difficult for us teachers. You see it, but you can't express it in words. But with your drawings, you can explain a lot." Lucy felt the confession touch her, the way his words made her heart beat faster. She turned and picked up the marker again, drawing an even more complex figure on the board. This wasn't just an image. She was drawing the essence of what she was feeling. "Maybe none of this is a coincidence, Lucy. You can help us solve what we can't understand. You can show us how to see the world differently," Michael continued, now relying on her abilities. She paused, looking at her work. The drawing was a complex, multifaceted shape that she couldn't explain in words, but she could see how its lines and angles connected, how they formed a solution to a problem she had long recognized. It was her way of explaining the world. "I will teach you. You need to show it to others. We can solve this problem together, Lucy. Your drawings can be the key to solving many mathematical problems that we all couldn't solve." His words were the solution that Lucy was waiting for. She looked at him and took another step. Her work was the beginning of a new path, a path where silence would not be an obstacle. She was ready to move on, and maybe finally her abilities would be able to change not only her life, but the lives of others. After Lucy took her first step towards discovering her talent, her life changed. She began visiting laboratories and working with professors. Everything that happened seemed strange to her, as if she herself was out of place. Incredible meetings, endless discussions of complex problems. And all this was a new world for her, a world that she had not noticed before. Lucy was not used to attention, and for her, every conversation with scientists, every new look at her drawings made her feel alien and out of place. Her day began the same as before. Cleaning the classrooms, cleaning the labs. But now, after meeting Michael, she was not just a cleaner, but a participant in an important process. Lucy realized that there was something more hidden in her drawings, something important to the people who worked within these walls. She seemed to be starting to solve riddles that no one else could understand. Her drawings were not just abstractions. They were becoming keys to solutions. One morning, after her shift ended, Michael invited her into his office. He was talking about something important, and Lucy felt that this would be a decisive moment. "Lucy, you have no idea how surprised everyone here is. What you drew yesterday doesn't just solve the problem. It opens up a new theorem. I want you to see it with your own eyes," Michael said as she walked in. He walked over to the table where several sheets of paper lay. They were printed with complex mathematical equations and graphs derived from her drawings. "Do you realize what you've done? You've just solved one of the most difficult theorems. You solved it not with words, but with drawings. You showed something that was impossible to explain with the usual method. This is brilliant," Michael continued, his voice full of delight. Lucy felt her heart skip a beat. She stared at the equations and graphs, trying to comprehend that her drawings had actually become important. They weren't just lines and angles. They were decisions she couldn't put into words. But that would become her legacy. "I was just drawing," she whispered, not understanding how all this was possible. Her fingers dug into her thoughts, trying to comprehend what had happened. Michael walked up to her, smiling encouragingly. "You don't understand, Lucy. You don't just draw. You perceive the world differently. What you see cannot be explained by the same methods other scientists use. You find solutions where we see only chaos. You have taught us to look at mathematics from a different perspective." Her gaze slid over the equations again, but now she didn't feel the same anxiety she had felt before. Lucy felt that her talent was not only unique, but also necessary. Her hands, the same hands that had once been occupied only with cleaning, were now opening up a world full of new possibilities. "What now?" Lucy asked, unsure if her work was done. She needed more than just confirmation now. She needed to find her way in this world of science. Michael put his hand on her shoulder. "Now you have to work with us. You have to teach us to think like you do. You see what we don't see, and it's not just a mathematical discovery. It's the beginning of something bigger." Lucy thought about it. She wasn't just a cleaning lady anymore. She wasn't the girl who passed by silently and unnoticed. She was part of this world, a world in which her drawings could change everything. When Lucy returned home, her thoughts were haunted. Everything she had just learned seemed incredible. Her ordinary life had become something completely new. She could not get used to the idea that now her work and ideas were of interest to other people. Lucy felt this strange burden on herself, and it was getting heavier. In her world, where she was the only one who saw the solution, someone else was now watching her every move. It was not easy for her. A few days passed, and Lucy met Michael and Eliza again. This time the conversation was serious. Eliza brought new tasks that required Lucy to use her drawings to create a new theory. Lucy could not just leave without dealing with this, and she knew she had to go through this ordeal. "Lucy, we've got some new problems for you," Eliza began, her voice firm. "Are you willing to work with us on them? You can help us solve something we can't figure out." Lucy sat down at the table where the new problem sheets were. An idea immediately popped into her head, and she began to draw. There were answers in her drawings, but they weren't so obvious to others. She looked at the blank pages she had to fill in, and felt her inspiration fill her. "I'm ready," she said, not looking up from the paper. Her fingers moved quickly, drawing lines that led to the answers. This was the beginning of a new phase in her life. She wasn't just solving problems, she was changing the way people thought. Mathematics, it turned out, wasn't just a bunch of numbers and formulas for her. It was her language, her way of interacting with the world. Michael and Eliza looked at her, their eyes filled with respect and admiration. They saw how Lucy, without saying a word, created solutions that made them think. This was more than just talent. It was a gift for seeing the world through lines and shapes that could open up new horizons for science. "You're incredible, Lucy. You're changing us, changing everything we knew about math," Michael said, his voice filled with deep gratitude. Lucy smiled, though the words wouldn't come out. She felt like she was on the right path now. She wasn't just holding a marker in her hands, she was holding the key to the future, to how she could change the world. With each new drawing, she realized that her place was here, with these people, with this task. She was no longer just an observer. She became part of this world, where her talent was important to everyone. And now, when she saw how her work helped other people, she felt that her life was gaining new meaning. Lucy sat at her desk, leafing through the pages of the scientific journals Michael had given her to analyze. Everything was jumbled up in her head. New theorems, equations, problems she hadn't noticed before. Everything was becoming clearer, but also more complex. The mathematics that had been her world was now opening up new horizons that seemed impossible to comprehend. Lucy stared at the graphs, filling them with her own drawings. Her fingers, accustomed to a pencil, now glided over the pages, creating lines and shapes that brought her to a new level of understanding. Her new life was full of discoveries, but she still felt like she was left out of the world. Lucy increasingly felt that her abilities did not match what she wanted to say. In her world of silence, she used every stroke to express her thoughts, but she wanted more than just recognition for her drawings. She wanted to be heard, but she could not find the words. No matter how hard she tried, silence became her protection, and at the same time her prison. Today, Lucy decided to meet Michael and Eliza to discuss a new project. When she entered the office, the atmosphere was already tense. On the table in front of the professors lay her drawings, the same ones she had just completed. But this time they were not simple geometric shapes. These were not just drawings. This was a theory that could become the basis for a new approach to mathematics. Lucy, your work is amazing, but it requires a special approach. You see mathematics differently, it's clear, but we have to be careful not to make mistakes. These drawings could change our entire view of the theory, Michael said, his voice full of respect, but also anxiety. He knew that Lucy was discovering something that no one had ever tried to understand. It could change everything. Eliza was silent, looking at the drawings and involuntarily running her finger along one of the lines, as if trying to read their hidden meaning. She too understood that Lucy was discovering something more than just mathematical conclusions. This was a new reality, a new form of perception. But how are we going to explain these results to others? You know that our world is accustomed to certain rules, to a certain way of thinking, Lucy. Your drawings are not just solutions to problems. They are a new way of looking at the world. And I am afraid that they might not understand, Eliza said, her voice sounding anxious but respectful of Lucy's work. Lucy listened to them, her eyes never leaving the drawings. She knew they were right. She could change a lot, but she was always in the shadows. She couldn't put her ideas into words. These were her drawings, their way of communicating. But what if all this was too complicated for them? What if they couldn't understand? I don't want to be just an object. I want my work to be understood, to have an impact on people. I can't just be a silent observer, Lucy wrote on the board. She felt like she needed to do more than just solve problems. Her inner desire to grow and be understood was stronger. Michael and Eliza were silent, and only then did Eliza speak, her voice soft, almost caring. Lucy, you have already done more than we could ever imagine. You have seen what we could not see. You have shown a new way. This is not just a step forward, it is a revolution. But now you need to figure out how to communicate this to others. You can do it, but it will take time. Lucy nodded, but her inner voice was saying something else. She was ready. Her drawings were ready-made solutions. They were already part of something bigger than just science. But what could she do if her silence remained a barrier? What if no one wants to listen? She wrote on the board, her hands shaking slightly. What if I'm too different for this world? Eliza came closer and looked into her eyes. You are already different, Lucy, and that's good, because it's people like you who change the world. But you need to learn to be confident in your path. You shouldn't be afraid to be different. You should be yourself. You can be heard. You can become the one who opens new horizons for us all. Michael came over too, putting his hand on her shoulder. We are with you, Lucy. We will help you to make your work heard. You are not alone. We are all here to walk with you. Lucy felt his words reassuring her. It was exactly what she needed to hear. But now, faced with this choice, she knew she was ready. Her work needed to be seen, but also understood. They spent several more hours in the study, discussing her drawings, trying to figure out what exactly in them might be new to science. Lucy felt her inner world beginning to transform. She could be part of something great. And if she could teach others to see the world as she did, then her silence would not just be the absence of words. It would be her way of speaking to the world. When the meeting ended, Lucy walked out of the office and into the hallway. Her mind was racing. She knew she was making progress, but she also felt like she was in the dark. Her drawings weren't just solutions. They were a new language, a language that could bring about change, but only if she learned to speak it confidently. It was starting to rain outside. It wasn't heavy, but the raindrops were tapping on the glass, creating a melody similar to the silence of her thoughts. Lucy looked out the window, feeling her heart begin to calm down. She realized that this path would be long and difficult, but she wasn't afraid. She wouldn't be silent. Lucy stood at the window, looking out onto the street where the rain was still drizzling, hiding the world behind the tightly closed curtain. She felt the cold air seeping through the cracks in the old windows, penetrating her to the bone. In this world of noise and movement, she felt part of something ancient, like an unsolved drawing on a blackboard that became more mysterious and meaningful with each passing day. But despite her success in mathematics, despite the recognition of her work, she felt her own life slipping away, as if she had become part of someone else's world. Lucy's mind was all in a jumble. She saw answers to questions that tormented scientists in her drawings, but the solutions she offered were more than just mathematical conclusions for her. They were answers that required understanding not only her drawings, but herself as well. She was not just a bearer of knowledge, she was its creator. But how could she tell people about it when she herself could not express her thoughts in words? The door creaked. Michael entered the office. He seemed tired, his face was serious, and there was some hidden question in his gaze. He silently approached the table, put down several new documents, and sat down opposite her. "Lucy, you know how much your drawings mean to us. But I know you need more than just recognition for your talent. You're not just an artist. You reveal a world we never thought of. But how will you live with that knowledge? You can't just be a silent genius. You need to be heard." Lucy looked at him, feeling his words begin to tear her apart from within. She knew it was true. But how could she be heard if silence had become part of her being? How could she show the world that her thoughts mattered if she couldn't speak? "I don't know what to do," she wrote on the board. It was her simple, honest confession, which she could not say out loud. "I draw because it allows me to be understood. But is that enough?" Michael looked closely at her drawings, which, despite their simplicity, hid incredible depth. His eyes followed the lines and angles, the very shapes that Lucy created in an attempt to convey her ideas. "You don't understand that you've already changed the way we look at the world. You don't just draw. You show us that we can look at old problems in a new way. I can't explain it in words myself, but your drawings give us the answers we've been looking for so long. You're not just a talent. You turn all of mathematics upside down." Lucy sighed and looked out the window again. The rain continued. The world outside the glass became more and more distant and alien. She could not find the strength to go out into this world where she was recognized but not understood. She could not be simply an object of admiration. She was a living person with feelings and thoughts that could not find a way to express themselves. "What next?" she wrote on the board. "What if I stay the same? What if I can't be understood?" Michael stood up, walked over to her, and put his hand on her shoulder. His words were serious but warm, like the support she needed. "You are not alone, Lucy. You will not be forgotten. We will find a way for the world to see you. You do not have to be a silent genius. You must be heard." She looked at his face, and felt his confidence rub off on her. There was a light in his eyes that she hadn't seen in a long time. Lucy knew she couldn't stay in the shadows. Her drawings shouldn't just be solutions to problems. She had to learn to be heard, to be a part of this world. I want more, Michael. I want to understand how I can live in this world if I can't speak. If I can't explain how I feel, how can I be understood? She wrote on the board, her fingers shaking with excitement as always. Michael stood there, looking at her. He understood her. He saw that she was ready to take a step that could change not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. He knew that she would not be satisfied with recognition of her genius. She wanted more. She wanted to be part of this world, part of people who could understand her. You can do it, Lucy. You have already proven that you can be understood, but you need to learn to speak, even if your words are not heard. Your drawings are your words, and you must learn to explain the world through them. You can be the one who opens new horizons for science. Your ideas can change everything. You must believe in yourself. His voice was full of determination. Lucy felt his words echo in her heart. She couldn't just be an observer. Her work wasn't just a product of her creativity. It was a reflection of her soul, her attempt to understand the world and be understood. And if she could change the perception of mathematics, then perhaps she could change herself. I'm ready, Michael, she wrote on the board. I'll work. I'll speak to the world through my drawings. I'll find a way to explain what I see. Michael smiled and nodded. He knew Lucy was ready for this step, and he was sure she could handle it. After all, her drawings weren't just math problems. They were her way of being understood, her path to understanding. But Lucy felt that this was only the beginning. Everything she had done before was just preparation. Now she was about to embark on a journey that could change not only her life, but the entire world around her. And despite the hardships of this journey, she was ready. The rain continued to drizzle outside, and Lucy, feeling a growing determination in her soul, looked again at the drawings that Michael and Eliza were looking at. She knew that she was part of something bigger. And no matter what happened next, her path was now connected to this new world. A world in which her thoughts, her drawings, could be the thing that changed everything. Lucy walked down the hallway, her steps quiet, almost soundless, as if she was afraid to disturb the silence. Yesterday's meeting with Michael and Eliza left her with conflicting feelings. She couldn't forget their words, their confidence in her talent, in the fact that her drawings could change the idea of mathematics. But the more she thought about the future, the stronger her fear became. Fear of not living up to their expectations, of not justifying the trust they had placed in her. After all, everything she did was unusual. She couldn't just come and explain her ideas in words. Her world was a world of lines, shapes, and angles. But what if that wasn't enough? The hallway was empty, as were her thoughts. The evening light was streaming through the windows, casting long shadows on the floor, and Lucy felt time slowly slipping away. She walked into her office, sat down on a chair, and looked at her whiteboard again. All she saw was a void, unfilled with her drawings. It was the place where her ideas became reality, but now it seemed meaningless to her. Every line she drew might be important, but what if she couldn't convey to others what she saw? There was a knock at the door. Lucy looked up and saw Michael walking into her office. His face was serious, but there was something new in his eyes, determination and anxiety. "Lucy, we need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. His voice was soft, but there was a hint of tension. Lucy noticed his gaze sharpen as he looked at her drawings. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm here to help. You've already done incredible things, and now we need to figure out how you can reach even more of your potential." Lucy didn't answer, but her gaze was fixed on his face. She felt her heart begin to beat faster. Her fear of the unknown became even stronger. She didn't know how to react, what to say so as not to disturb this fragile harmony that could lead her to success. "I don't know what to do, Michael. I draw because it's my way of thinking. But I can't just show my ideas to others. I don't know how to convey what I feel through these drawings," Lucy wrote on the board, her hands shaking. Michael came closer and looked at the board, and then at Lucy. "You're afraid of being misunderstood, aren't you?" he asked quietly. His voice was full of sympathy. "You've already shown the world that your way of thinking is unique. But you need to understand that you're not alone in this. We're all here to help you, Lucy." Lucy felt Michael's words touch her soul. Her heart began to calm down, and she suddenly realized that her drawings were not just for her. They were her way of communicating, her way of speaking to the world. But what if the world wasn't ready to hear it? "I'm afraid my drawings won't be understood. I'm afraid they'll be perceived as something strange, something unnecessary." Lucy wrote on the board, and her hands began to shake again. Michael stood next to her and put his hand on her shoulder. "Your drawings are not strange, Lucy. They open up a new way of looking at the world. The mathematics you show is not just a set of numbers. It is philosophy. You help us understand what we could not see. You have opened up new horizons, and now we must help you be heard. You must not be afraid that your ideas will not be accepted. We are here to understand them." The words sank into Lucy's soul. She felt her fear, though not gone, lessen. She knew Michael and Eliza believed in her work, but now she had to believe in herself. She had already taken the first step, drawing her solutions, but now she faced another challenge, learning to communicate her ideas in a way that others could understand. She couldn't hide from it. She had to open herself up to the world. "I'm ready, Michael. I'll work, I'll draw, but I want my ideas to be understood, to be heard," she wrote on the board. Michael smiled, but there was more to his smile than just joy. He knew that Lucy was ready to take a step that could change everything. "You will do it, Lucy. We are with you, and you are not alone." His words were confident, and Lucy felt this confidence being transmitted to her. Michael stood up and walked to the door. "I'll come to you tomorrow, Lucy. We'll start working together. You don't have to be alone in this process. We'll create a program that will help your drawings be more than just solutions to problems. You'll teach us to see the world through our eyes. You'll show us what's impossible to see in the usual way." Lucy watched his figure walk away, feeling her heart fill with new hope. She knew this path would not be easy, but she also understood that this was her chance. She was ready. Lucy could no longer remain in the shadows. Her drawings were important, and she knew that with their help, she could change this world. With each new stroke, she became more than just an artist. She became someone who could change the perception of reality. When Michael left, Lucy sat down at her desk again and began to draw. She didn't know what would happen, but she felt she was on the right track now. She drew, and new shapes, new ideas appeared in her drawings. It was her way of speaking. And in this world full of words and noises, she learned to be silent in order to be heard. It was quiet in her room. There was a tense silence in the air that she felt was part of herself. The rain continued to fall outside, and her drawings became what was left behind. All she could do was trust the process. Only in that silence could she understand that her life was just beginning.